All right, and we're back for another episode of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our shows. And if you can, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do anything that you can to support us right here at the Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, Game Source, of course, the great folks at lakersball.com, and also our wonderful friends at the Hoopheads Podcast Network. It is sincerely appreciated. Well, the Lakers are gearing up. They're getting ready to go ahead and hit training camp next week. They're going to hit the floor running. They're already, as rumors have it, here in my town, Las Vegas, Nevada. They're already doing some training, extracurricular work. LeBron has gathered the troops who are available to go ahead and do so, already working out. So, Lakers fans, if you're out there, be rest assured that they're going to be prepared heading into camp. And here today to talk about what's going on when he heard about this, plus a whole myriad of things, including some final results from our polls and some of our things that we talked about that going on his site, lakersball.com. It is Ox1947, better known as Joe Soro. And Joe, before we get into that, I wanted to go ahead and mention on our previous conversation, there were some comments that were made, and I'm not asking you, you're saying whatever, what you said is what you said on that, but I know there was some individuals out there on Twitter. I want to give a special mention to John Mark Carter. Those were statements. I disagreed with them, but you're entitled to your opinion. And if that's the case, that's the case. But I want to say, John or Mark Carter, I know you were upset by them. I can say for me, I apologize if you were hurt by them. But again, I disagreed in that stance. But that's, Joe, that's you. I know you said already when you came on to the show for the first time, even before one, you said you're going to say some controversial things. You're going to speak your mind. And I'm expecting nothing less.
So I had a chance to go back and listen to our podcast. And
well, first of all, thank you for helping our download numbers.
No problem. I usually don't like to do that. I mean, I guess you have to sometimes to see kind of how you're delivering your message. But the part I didn't like was using the word dumb. It's counterproductive, and I take full responsibility for that. That doesn't do anyone any good. No one, not in the discussion, not in the people we're talking about. I guess you can say that someone saying something that's not good is that's going to be part of this. But this using the word dumb was dumb on my part. So I do regret using those words. I am hard on LeBron, and a lot of it is from before he was even a Laker. And that I could get into those details, but it's
well, you're not unlike a lot of individuals out there who are not willing to let LeBron's past discretions, i.e., the decision and all that. And,
well, see, here's the thing, Gerald. That never bothered me. It's not so much. It's more kind of. It's more in line with, for example, the most recent ones that he said was revolving around, Adam Silver's dealing with a lot of stuff and he's trying to support. And in life, you got to give and take. And sometimes LeBron comes off as entitled, like he has to have it his way. He may not be doing that, but he's done it. He's done things like this enough where it's probably that's what it is. And he doesn't think sometimes. But I want to make this clear. I am very happy LeBron does a lot of great things. And it's just like anyone in your life, your wife, your husband, your kids, your friends. You don't like everything your friends and your family do, right? I mean, that's normal life. There are things that drive you nuts. It's the same situation. To turn it into what I ended up reading, what it was interpreted as, I thought that was extremely ignorant. And that is dead wrong. And I'm going to end this nicely as I can and to really make the message clear, I will not be intimidated by the Twitter Nazis or the cancel culture mob. Okay, you can sit there and call me whatever you want. Whatever was said about me is dead wrong. I can't sit there and say, I'm going to be opinionated. I'm going to say what I want to say and then criticize someone for doing the same. I may not agree with the method, but that's it. I'm not going against it. Hey, I haven't missed a game since all this other stuff started, and I never will. And I've actually been criticized by friends of mine who are a little, over the board with that stuff. I'm like, they're not taking away the Lakers. They're not taking away sports from me. And that's how I look at it. So again, the support is always going to be there. But if, again, sometimes you're not going to hear what you want to hear, and you can't deviate it to something that's not true. It's not true. And I'll leave it at that. And if anybody wants to contact me, I just got on Twitter literally 3 days ago. So handle is Joe Soro 5. I guess there's 4 other Joe Soros out there. So you can comment, you can talk to me, and you might like the answer or you might not. And that's where I'm at. There's nothing else to say after this other than there is a little regret on how I delivered the message. I don't think it's productive to say something like calling somebody dumb. It's dumb. That was dumb on my part, and I want to get past it and get better at delivering the message in a more eloquent, more respectful way.
That sounds good. Again, I could have ultimately been the one to have deleted or edited the episode in such a manner where those statements were out. And maybe in hindsight, I made a mistake in that too. And if I did, I apologize for not going ahead. But
you might have done me a favor if you did that, because if this stays out there, somebody I guess has something on me. But again, I'm not running away from anything. Whatever was said is not true, and it doesn't bother me. It really doesn't. I am here to talk Lakers, to talk sports, and sometimes I'm not going to agree with things. And if it's tailored into the current living situation that we're in, I'm sorry. That's my, hey, we're in America. It's my opinion. If it bothers you, fine. But there's no need to go and create your own reason why. However, if we end up getting as big as we want to get here, that's something I'm just going to have to get used to. So it is what it is.
And I said at the time, after seeing the comments that were made on Twitter, and again, I appreciate the comments on Twitter. And I actually do want to thank that individual for listening to our show. I know I get comments every now and then, how good we're doing, how much they love the show. But I also get comments on me, on Laker Tom, on Jamie Sweet. I've gotten individuals who wanted to kick all of us out at times. So, I mean.
I don't know who would want to kick. I don't know why anyone would want to kick you out.
Because they don't like my opinion on something.
There's no show. There's no show without Gerald Glassford. So it's not. I mean, how many shows are you doing? You're doing, I don't know, 10 shows?
No, just I'm doing about 4 to 5 a week, maybe actually a little more, but still.
And you're diverse, talking about the Spurs and the Lakers, talking about Portland. I mean, come on, man. This is what we want. We want diversity. You talk about diversity. This is diversity. We want to hear about everything. We want to know about everything. This is exciting. It's exciting stuff. It's only going to get better. And again, the mob and this cancel culture crap, everybody's starting to get tired of it. You don't hear what you want. You just assume it's what it is. I'm sorry. You're wrong. You're wrong in this case. I was wrong in how I delivered the message. Okay. Other than that, everything else was crap. So again, I'm having a good time here. I'm glad that I thought this would happen later when I had a bigger audience. I didn't think it would be this quick. I'll be honest. I knew this would happen one day, but I had no idea it would be within the first 4 or 5 shows. So it's a good kind of practice already to get into this, and let's tackle what the next. I'm so excited right now. I've been hearing some things about Anthony Davis that I can't wait to talk about, and we're But we're about to hit it right now.
We are here. I'll say you and Johnny Depp both are tired of cancel culture. He just
you read it too. You read it too. And the other thing is Marsha, and you're gonna like this. You know, I know you're a Star Wars guy. Marsha
Lucas.
Oh, when I read that article on Variety today, I was just like, Marsha, where have you been? I've been talking about you for 10, 20 years now. Okay. And I actually didn't mind the prequels. I actually didn't mind them. Okay.
No,
I know they were bad, but I think at that time, maybe my maturity level was a little different. But again, this last trilogy was the backbreaker. I was.
Well, hold on, Joe. I hope YouTube, when it takes that sample.
I'm just trying to be positive.
I hope it gets this right here. Somebody's going to why was Gerald holding it?
Well, she said, I knew it was bad because she said when she saw episode 1, she started crying. And I'm like, oh my God, could you imagine being there?
Episode, okay, all I can say is with the reboot of J.J. Abrams things, I think she's a little bit hard on J.J. The first one was just a copy, cut and paste from the original Star Wars, so it's harmless in what it is. The second one, people love it or people hate it. There is no in between with The Last Jedi, and then with with The Last Skywalker, that's just horrible. That was just awful. Movie making. JJ, he mailed it in and it was just a mess. So people can have issues with that. And then the prequels, all 3 of them, you can have them. You can have them because I certainly don't want them again. I sat through them and I don't want to be sitting through them again. So they're just that bad. I can understand her. I can understand her issues. And I don't know how much of the $4 billion from Disney she got, or if any of it, because I know she was not married to George Lucas because she divorced him long time ago, but hopefully she had some of that $4 billion from Disney that George Lucas got.
I always say, when I describe man, woman, marriage, there's always the usual BS, right? It's, divorces and this. I like to look at it from a different perspective. I feel like men are just coasting, right? And then if the man finds the right woman, he ascends. Bad woman, he plummets. Marsha Lucas, I don't know what their marriage was like, so I'm not gonna pretend I knew what was going on, but I'm gonna focus on the Star Wars thing. George Lucas put idea to paper.
Yes,
he did great. But what I think went behind the scenes, and again, she's an Academy Award-winning editor, okay? And they should have won the Oscar. That the things they did in that film were amazing, considering there was no technology for any of it. They created it all while they were making the film under the gun for $8 million. Even then, I know it was a lot of money then, but still, geez, I don't know how they did it, right? So I think Marsha kept him in line. So he probably wanted to go off to a tangent. She's like, what are you doing? Get out of here. Get over here. And I think George, and again, this is assumption. I don't know what happened. I'm just using my observation skills here. I think what happened was, the fact that she was right and made a trilogy of the ages, I think maybe there was some resentment in there. And then, of course, they ended up splitting. And I'm like, man, I'd be the exact opposite. I'd be like, if my wife saved me from this and helped me create this, I would have loved her even more. But then again, I enjoy having independent, like-minded, wife that has a career, that has aspirations, that can tell me, hey, Joe, you're acting like an idiot. That to me is how I think it should be. And, I've been happily married for 13 years doing that. So again, today's been a good day. I got to admit, it's been a very good day. I've been reading some things that I like. The Johnny Depp article I read. And by the way, guys, Gerald and I didn't talk about this. We didn't prepare for this. This is totally like we just impromptu this. Yeah. So this is why you and I work together. There's something here, man. So
I do a pop culture podcast show that's
sure
around the world.
Sure. And I didn't see the show. It's been a good day, and I feel like I think we're breaking through this little headache of ours in society a little bit. I also read an article on Yahoo that there is a little bit more cluster. There's more of a cluster now with what's been going on with COVID. So we're probably looking at 2022 being the year where the pandemic name is gone. So now let's talk about the Lakers. Let's talk about 21, 22, and 18 with guys right now. Everything I'm hearing is really good, and especially from the AD front.
Well, I wanted to go ahead just before we end on that, just to close with something I said after reading the comments, and that was this. I just said I think the easy thing to do would have taken this down, the videos, the whole podcast, or not put it up in the first place, or edit out entirely. But that would be running away from our differences that we have in our society. It's my sincerest hope that we can someday soon understand what our differences are, why there is the division we have, and work together to try and build a better future for us all. And we'll leave it at that.
And again, that's a great way to end it. And I'll end it with this. A lot of the problems also with again, it comes down to control. And a lot of the people that have felt, disenfranchised and unheard now have a platform. And what they're doing is they're attacking those who think differently. And those who think differently, who are getting bombarded, I think the reason why they're kind of wilting is because they probably have some skeletons in the closet that they don't want coming out. Yeah. So with that, I don't have any skeletons. So if you're going to try to get me, it's going to be hard. I haven't been arrested in my life. I don't hang around with any undesirables. I don't do drugs. I hardly drink. I'll just celebratory cigar once in a while. I live a pretty boring life. I don't do anything that would warrant something going, hey, we know what you did over here. So I always feel like I have good people around me too, people that can support me of all walks of life. So I feel very comfortable when someone misjudges or misinterprets something, because at that point, show me proof that I've ever hinted at anything like this other than a few words, So again, it is what it is. This is something we have to get used to in this business of ours. And we got a little taste of it now, and we adapt and go on.
I thought you said you don't hang around undesirables. I'm here. You're hanging around with me. Come
on, Gerald. You're like the friend I've always had that I've never met.
Fair enough.
You know everything. You know everything about everything. You're a Renaissance man, and usually the Renaissance men is usually people I like to be around. I like to learn things from, and again, the culture is always an important thing. I'm a cultured man myself. I know 3 languages. I have family that were immigrants when they came here, became citizens in 1982. I didn't know English the first 5 years of my life. And then, I've lived in big cities and I've been raised in small towns. And, I feel like, I got a little culture here and there everywhere I go. And it's been a good life so far the first 43 years.
Well, you say I know a little bit about everything. If only I knew the California lottery numbers, we'd be really golden.
What's it at now? 800 million?
Yeah.
I don't even play. I get maybe one number anytime I do. I don't even bother to play, but I my business stuff is going really well. A big deal came through this week as well.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And the audience will soon reap the benefits of that. And I know you being from LA, you're definitely gonna get a chance to see what's going on there. It's been a very, very good week. And I'm looking forward to continuing to get past this little issue that we had, and we're gonna create more content here that's going to be valuable for the viewer.
Absolutely, indeed. But I'm here again with Ox1947 for LakersBall.com. I know him as Joe Soro. Coming up right now, we're going to be talking about a lot of great things. But before we get into Lakers, I want to ask you this. You heard, as I did, that LeBron James has gathered the troops here in my town right now that I'm in and have been for quite some time, the new transplanted home of Raiders. And it's so funny because I see all these transplanted Raiders fans around. I saw a guy at the Costco gassing up with his Derek Carr jersey on, and I'm just going, my God, this guy was probably spitting at Derek Carr this time last year, but okay, all right, I get it. But, they're here in Vegas right now. They're gearing up. Your thoughts, because training camp hasn't started yet, but this tells me they're good. That's a good sign, because with all these new players, to get them working together, to start to mesh, to see that happening, that really brings a smile to my face.
It looks like it's mimicking the 2020 season a little more. And it's weird how one little comment or one little thing that'll happen that will kind of sort of spark things. So I remember last year when we signed Dennis Schroeder, the talk as soon as he signed was he wanted to be a starter. And there was a little bit of like, what? Not only from fans, but it looked like the team. This is a guy that came off of a runner-up Sixth Man of the Year campaign. I'm assuming the Lakers were thinking he was going to be that guy. And then all of a sudden he came out of nowhere and said, oh, no, I want to be a starter. Right away, you had that little kink in this chemistry. And then as the year went on, then Marc Gasol, which I had never heard anything bad from Marc Gasol his whole career. All of a sudden, he's mad that he lost his position. And it kind of like just became a microcosm of the season in general. This season, I think, looking at Talon, THT, looking at the guys that are coming in, they all seem focused. Talon, I think, dropped 15 pounds. He looks leaner, can get up in the air higher, easier. And then, of course, the big guy, Anthony Davis, just got married. I guess he sings on his off days too, which was pretty funny. And apparently they were putting the Hulk next to his picture or things like that, saying this guy's, I guess, pretty shredded and pretty in shape, which makes sense because what did we talk about in the last few episodes? We haven't heard anything out of his camp. The wedding was like the first thing I'd heard about him during the off season. And I like that. I like it. Show me during the season. And if AD is healthy and looking like the Hulk, come on. Is anybody going to beat the Lakers? Who's going to get close? AD's a stud, man.
Well, that's the thing. He needs to play like it. Last year, obviously, maybe because he was fatigued, and then before the injury set in, really uneven results last season. But you know what? We're coming up on a new year. He's had a new season. We're coming up on a new season, and he's just looks like he's in a little bit more shape. I've seen the pictures. He looks like he's ready. He looks like he's going to be coming in focused. Realize, though, my friend, that the Lakers will be playing their third season. Will be entering their third season within a span of a calendar year. Within a span of 12 months, they will be on their third season. Because you got to remember the bubble season, finish that off, and then they went through a full season, or almost a full season, 72 games plus the playoffs. And then now they're coming into this. I mean, they will have at least some type of rest going into this season, but still – you're worried a little bit about some of these injuries that could happen again because of the fact that these guys have been going so fast for such a stretch. I mean, some of them even played the Olympics. I mean, I really think that this could still be an issue, the same type of things we saw during last season when it increased.
It's going to come down to Fred Vogel's rotations at that point and the health of Anthony Davis. LeBron can manage himself. The only reason why he got injured last year is because somebody landed on his leg. That wasn't a pulled groin or a pulled hamstring that kept him out for 2-3 months. That was someone literally falling on his ankle and almost breaking it. So I don't consider LeBron's situation last year as any effect on what's going to happen here. He might be one extra year, I guess, down his prime. Yeah. But that's something we have to get realistic with. However, some have argued he's still in his prime. Not 2012 prime, but he's still pretty effective. Again, he's he was going to win the MVP last year had he not gotten fall on by, was it Solomon? Forgot his last name.
Solomon Hill.
Solomon Hill. And we're going to have to wait and see. We're going to have to wait and see on that. But again, I've been waiting and seeing when Tom Brady was going to decline. And I have said that LeBron James has a similar trajectory with whatever they're doing. It's almost identical in terms of how they take care of themselves and how effective they are every year. Now, Tom Brady isn't winning the Super Bowl every year. Matter of fact, he looked pretty average the last couple of years, or 2 years ago before he left New England, his last year there. But look what happened when you gave him a little talent last year, and even more now. LeBron has, I think, the most talented team this year than the previous 3 years he's been with the team. So if he stays healthy, which I think they will, because again, Russell Westbrook being 32, he's still in his prime. If the rotations work and he can take up a lot of that ball handling energy during the regular season and letting LeBron play. Basically, I want LeBron to be Tim Duncan of 2014. Tim Duncan did not play more than 28, 29 minutes that year. It was the best year of coaching, arguably the best year of coaching I've ever seen by Greg Popovich was 2014, and how they were on a mission and they just plowed through everybody, including LeBron in his prime with two other Hall of Famers on that team. So I'm thinking if Frank Vogel can get his rotation consistent and tight, and then if AD is recovered from his injuries, I don't know how the heck they're going to not win. We're looking at something that's going to be very exciting. I'm
if
very
LeBron and AD play at like the two top 5 players in the league, yeah, there's the West, and they're healthy, of course. Then the West is theirs. The West is theirs, and Russell Westbrook, the pressure will be off for him to really have to contribute at such a high level. He just has to go ahead and just do his thing. If LeBron and AD are playing like we know that they can play, like in the bubble that we saw just less than a year ago, then I think, like you said, the Lakers really just have a lot of good things in store for them.
It is. And again, the ifs is for every team, though.
Yeah.
So we could if it all we want.
Well, I mean, it's all based off of health. I mean, one player, one injury on any of these teams, all 30 teams, could derail an entire season.
Right. But it is different this year because we do have a third star, which is something we needed. There was no margin of error in 2020 and no margin of error in 2021. The only difference is in 2020, we got away with it. No major injuries, no issues there. 2021, we had all the injuries to the top two guys. At the worst times, we had a 7 seed. We didn't have a chance to even if we had gotten maybe a 3rd or 4th seed, we would have been able to avoid a team like Phoenix and maybe kind of got acclimated. But then again, for all we know, AD would have got hurt there too. So it always comes down to health. But I'm looking at this as they did exactly what I hoped they would do. As soon as the season ended, I said, we cannot have to win the title. The way that the league is set up right now is I'm worried about the Brooklyn Nets. Okay, I'm worried about there's a team with Kyrie, James Harden, and Durant. And in this league, star power wins titles. So the Lakers had to – could they have beat – I don't know if they could have – I think if they played perfect, they could have beaten a healthy Brooklyn team. But it's going to be a heck of a lot easier with their own third star. And during the season, the margin of error isn't as drastic because if LeBron wants to take a couple days off and, Russell Westbrook will cover a little of that. And then you have Rondo who's going to play 15 minutes a game, and that'll help. And he's more team-oriented. And Russell Westbrook, despite his shooting woes, everybody that's played with Russell Westbrook loves Russell Westbrook. and he's very giving, and he's very accommodating, and he's a beast. So I think this is the first team that Russell Westbrook's been on since 2012 when they went to the finals. And then you can probably say 2016 to a degree. I mean, they were a couple plays away from beating a 73-9 Golden State team. You know, sometimes in sports, man, that one play will make a difference, you know, and I try not to hold that against too many people. I think Russell Westbrook is in a very good situation here, and I think it's going to make the difference in the end, not only from at the end of the year health standpoint, but it's going to help during the regular season in maintaining that health so that they don't burn out at the end.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. Very excited to be a part of what we're doing here at the Lakers Fast Break, keeping an eye up for you on what's going on for the rest of the season for the Los Angeles Lakers as they are working out right now here in Vegas. Training camp is just around the corner, just a few days away. Wanted to ask you, I know you've been checking out before we get into all the Lakers ball stuff, and I wanted to go ahead and also at the very end mention something about the latest news that's going on in regards to the Minnesota Timberwolves and Gerson Rosas, which I talked to Megan Price on earlier as we're recording this. But I wanted to go ahead and ask you, you've been watching some stuff in regards to, you mentioned some recent podcasts and shows that the NBA, Sirius XM, Bill Simmons, who just I'm not exactly the biggest fan of, but you know what? I got to give him props because Spotify paid him $1 gazillion for his ringer. So you know what? You know, they can go ahead and come by and pay us $1 gazillion too for Lakers Fast Break. I'm just saying. But I want to hear your thoughts, my friend. You've been hearing along the stuff. There's been some good thoughts that you wanted to go ahead and lay down in regards to some of the things that have been said out there about the Lakers in these type of shows.
Okay, so the Minnesota Timberwolves thing is obviously not Laker related.
No, but it was very interesting, and I discussed that with Megan Price when she was doing with me her San Antonio Spurs outlook. At the time, we weren't sure what it was, but we could tell. You could tell because it was so abrupt, and it was just before training camp that there was some juicy behind-the-scenes stuff going on. And I said on that show, I said I couldn't wait to go ahead and find out what that juicy stuff was. Well, it was kind of tabloidish, and it was almost because when you're looking at Shams Charania's Twitter, you know, you can almost see like the ooze coming out of it. Like he really didn't want to have to delve into the stuff, but it did get back to it. Okay, part of it was for, I guess, operational and production reasons. They didn't feel that the team was at the standpoint where it needed to be heading into training camp. I mean, to me, I still think that is not entirely the case of what's going on. But the other thing is that he was having a consensual relationship with someone that was working within the organization. I think that was more a part of the reason why. I mean, you really don't fire your GM before the season starts. You see how the season plays out a little bit. Like I mentioned earlier, only the Phoenix McDonough was the last one to get fired just before training camp, although that worked for Phoenix. You see where they've done from there. But, you know, I really think it was more the latter issue than the former, even though, again, it was a consensual relationship with an individual in the office, in the organization. It seems like that it's something that the new hierarchy, that the new partnership that now owns the majority or has, as far as the team is concerned, you know, because they recently purchased it away from Glenn Taylor. That seems like they have an issue with it, and that's what they did.
The Glenn Taylor thing, it started right around the sale, where part of the contingency is you can't move the team. I think A-Rod was involved, right? So
yeah, that's correct.
Now this is just pretty. It's fitting.
And Gerson Rosas, just to make sure everybody knows, was a hire of Glenn Taylor, the previous managing general partner of the team.
So it's just like anything else. When a new owner comes in, they want their own people in, right? I guess.
Why didn't they do that before the draft? Because they got the team before the draft. They got the team before free agency, and they chose to do nothing then.
Great point. Maybe they found out about something.
It was the relationship.
right? And that was their excuse. Sometimes that happens in business where they're just waiting for you to mess up, and then, or they might know that's going on. They wait, and then boom, right? Again, looking at this, I can't speculate. I don't know what's going inside those windows and doors and at the Target Center, but this is so typical of the Minnesota Timberwolves in their entire, what is it now, existence, 33-year existence. They had one of the best players of his era on the team, and they went to one Western Conference final. And for the longest time, they couldn't get out of the first round. And, KG was loyal to a fault. It's funny, we talk about the word loyalty a lot of times. Loyalty is very subjective. It's a subjective thing. You can look at it from Damian Lillard is sort of dealing with that right now with, do I stay loyal? Do I do what everyone else does and look bad? Or do I stay strong? But then am I going to win anything if I do this? So you're kind of caught through that. And the Minnesota Timberwolves basically encompasses all that stuff where you lose. It seems like you lose no matter what you do. And Karl Anthony Towns tweets, and this is the thing that cracks me up about today's person. It's obvious they're not talking to him about what's going on with the organization, and he's supposedly the franchise player. The fact that he says WTF in a tweet after he finds out about Rosas's firing only tells you that there's no connection with anybody over there. I don't know what the heck they're going to do. D'Angelo Russell, Karl Anthony Towns, this is supposed to be your two all-stars, right? Minnesota, I feel bad for the fans. They have a very good following there. That whole Midwest area, because of weather, because of lifestyle, because of culture, these guys will support you. This isn't Miami. This isn't, Southern California and San Diego where, half the people would show up to games. People would actually go to these games if you just put some kind of a product there that was more consistent. But you might like this idea, and again, the idea is out there, but I was thinking whomever was going to buy this team was eventually going to move it to Vegas. Because I think geographically it's better. And there's a lot of teams in the Midwest. You got Milwaukee, you got Chicago, you got enough Cleveland, you got enough of those teams over there. If Minnesota,
now they're not going to move it. Now they can't move it because of what was done. Now Las Vegas, well, first Seattle. But I think if they bring into an expansion, and I talked about this last week, Seattle's number one, Las Vegas number two. I mean, we're seeing success now with the Golden Knights selling out every game here at the T-Mobile Arena. I mean, here at the football stadium, right now it's only 2 games in. Okay, so I'm putting things in perspective, but the Raiders are selling quite a bit here. It's almost a full packed house, 60,000 fans. So now's the time to go ahead for the NBA, who comes here for everything else, finally to go ahead and shake the past of that tragic all-star game, which we know from the 90s and what happened there and what happened when, but finally move on from that and give this team a franchise. I know that would be great, but again, Seattle's number one, and deservedly so, because we all know what happened there. But yeah, I think that's what's ultimately what's going to happen. Then you're going to see maybe you'll see down the road Mexico City, London, and the going international, because I know that's what Adam Silver and the rest of the NBA want, is to truly go international. And I think that's what would do it. But that's way down the road.
Yeah, the Seattle, I've always thought they're going to get an expansion team no matter what. They're going to get the Supersonics back, and then the Oklahoma Thunder would become their own.
Wouldn't it be cool if KD in his last and final year went back to Seattle?
Again, with the whole Seattle debacle, this goes back to how David Stern handled that whole situation, and
of course.
I don't talk a lot about that because I'm selfish. I'm a Laker fan. I only talk about Laker things. But that was another bad situation under the David Stern era. And the fact that the Seattle Supersonics, especially with its history and like, how do you lie? At least are you really going to do the Art Modell thing? Are you going to really lie? Well, just tell the truth. Look, guys, you guys aren't providing the stadium we need, and we can't afford to do it this way. We're gonna go to Oklahoma City.
At least the Raiders, they just say, you know what, we're taking the money and moving to LA. We're taking the money and moving back to Oakland. We're taking the money and moving to Las Vegas.
Well, the thing with Oakland is they're broke. They're broke. I mean, broke. There is no hiding. It's common sense. Can you guys build us a stadium? We're an NFL football team. We're one of the most branded sports entities on the planet. We're the Raiders. The Raiders that logo is known everywhere. Can you guys build? Can you help us out here? No, we can't. I'm sorry, we don't have any money. Okay, well, we're going to Vegas. Instead of all this conniving, oh, don't worry, we're going to do this and don't do that. No. See, and that's a lot of the problems we have in this country is because of things like that. Adults, people get over things. You're going to have to get over it. It's life. But lying about it doesn't help. And the stuff with the Timberwolves seems like there's a lot of that going on there. And
I mean, they did it so fast. I mean, they didn't even tell Karl Anthony Towns. He was on Twitter going, just WTF. He didn't know what was going on. None of the players knew this in advance. This is something that came out of left field. And in fact, at the beginning of this day that we're recording, Gerson Rosas was actually at the facility. He was, looking up players, as far as invitees to camp. He was still doing his job. He was just pulled over and was fired pretty much on the spot. And this is ugly, but people are going to forget about it because it just concerns the GM. It's not like the Ben Simmons debacle, and that's another show altogether. We're seeing still how that plays out. I mean, because that's another layer of ugliness. But I wanted to go ahead before we mention all the LakersBall.com stuff that's been going around, including some very interesting top 10 all-time Lakers that I've got to go ahead and share with the public out there. I wanted you to go ahead and, you've been, like I said, you've been watching and listening to some shows out there, Sirius XM, Bill Simmons and all that, things that you're hearing on the radio in regards to the Lakers. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on exactly what these things are and what makes you feel like you really want to go ahead and share your thoughts on it.
One of the things I've liked the last few months, some of the topics that people have been talking about, because they've been talking about this, who's the greatest of all time at nauseum, to the point where I'm just sitting there going, who cares? I don't care, okay? You can't compare eras. It's impossible. Even though basketball is a little easier to do that because of, the valuable, the players a little bit more valuable on a 5-man team versus, let's say, 11 on one side or a base 25 in baseball. It's nice because there's something that intrigues. It's always intriguing to think, what if? And Bill Simmons podcast, he had a what if the Chris Paul trade had gone through? What if
in honor of the Marvel Disney series that's taking place?
What if Len Bias was still here? What if Reggie Lewis was still here? And it's fun talk. It's almost like going back to your lottery thing. What if I won the lottery? What if I won $800 million? What are we going to do? Well, it's very likely, one of the first few things we're going to be doing is we're going to be getting a nice little set, and we're going to be marketing the heck out of Fast Break and turn it into a phenomenon, right? So yes. Fun to talk about that stuff. It's fun, even though it's a little tragic. The most recent one with the Chris Paul thing, but then you look back at stuff in history, and those are legitimate things. I don't like saying what if the Portland Trailblazers had drafted Michael Jordan. That's a dumb what if, because you have to look at the time. Looking at the time and understanding what was going on at that time. The Kobe Bryant thing is a really good one, because you'll hear about the what if the Charlotte Hornets had kept Kobe Bryant. I go, that's the wrong what if. They wouldn't have drafted him unless they were getting the trade done with the Lakers to get Vlade Divac. The what if there, and NBA TV had a segment on this, was what if Calipari, who wanted Kobe, had drafted Kobe to the New Jersey Nets, what would have happened in New Jersey? I think the Nets would still be in Jersey, and they'd have a stadium in New Jersey, and Kobe would have probably had 3, 4, 5, 6 titles up in the rafters. And he would have been a god in New York. He would have made the Nets more popular than the Knicks. Is that possible? Or am I just...
We're going to probably put it to the test this season.
So you see how this is? You see how, how fun it is to think what would have happened. And there was some BS for years that Kobe was threatening to go to Duke, because that's where he would have gone had he gone to college, right? Or maybe he would have even played in New York. But later, we finally had footage where he said, I would have played anywhere. I wouldn't have cared. And I'm like,
he went to the Clippers. What if he would have actually went over to the Clippers like he was?
Oh boy, that was scary, because he did verbally say to Elgin Baylor he was coming. Jerry West, and the only reason why we know this now is because after Kobe had passed away, they were, Jerry was crying and talking to the TNT NBA crew about what was going on at that time and how he convinced Kobe Bryant to not play for that owner. That was what he told him. He said, you cannot play for that owner. So that changed I haven't even delved into the Clipper thing. My brain doesn't register that, but maybe I can't get into it. But these are, in my opinion, fun topics. There's so many scenarios we could talk about, and it's not some deadpan, unoriginal crap like who's better, or is it more important to what if you lose in the finals versus someone who doesn't lose? I'm like, okay, look, we've talked about this already. It's done. Like, how much more of the same stuff are you going to talk about? Let's talk about new stuff. Let's talk about stuff that really is fun to really kind of delve into to see what you think might have happened.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, you think of a what if, and I'll think of a what if, and we'll go from there and talk about that. How about that?
Okay. So who wants to go first? You want to go first?
I'm ready with one.
Go ahead.
What if we never made the Pau Gasol trade?
Wow. I never thought about that one. The Pau Gasol trade was it's hard to that was at the apex of fandom. Even though I was a huge fan in the 90s, I remember Shaq coming. I remember, Kobe Bryant being traded here. But this was like Kobe was on his third season without, making it out of the first round. The first season was not even a playoff berth. And it was one of those things where, man, he's already demanded to go to Pluto at the time. He wanted to go to Chicago, and the Laker fans at that time, man, we were talking about Luol Deng, and if they don't have Luol Deng in the trade, we're not going to do it. I'm like sitting there going, man, when I think about it now, I'm going, wow, I can't believe we were having that discussion. If Pau Gasol does not get traded to the Lakers, I don't think Kobe wins 2 more titles.
I agree with you on that, because Andrew Bynum, he had already suffered injuries by that time. He was no longer the center with such great potential. He was just there as another 7-foot big body who could rebound and do a little bit inside the paint, but he certainly wasn't at the level that he could have been. I mean, if there's another what if Andrew Bynum had never suffered those 2 knee injuries, he would have been, I think, one of those historic players that the Lakers would have been really happy about for a long time. But that's another what if to say.
Well,
I agree with you. They would not have won those 2 titles without Gasol.
But then it could have avalanched into something else. The Bynum thing was, in terms of his injury, had Bynum not gotten, if Lamar hadn't fell on him that year.
Was it Kobe? I thought it was Kobe that fell on him.
No, Kobe fell on him the following year. In Memphis, by the way. Both were in Memphis. So Lamar fell on him, and he basically was irrelevant the rest of the year, pretty much out for the year.
Yeah.
Had he stayed healthy, it would have been a little easier to play against Kendrick Perkins, KG, Leon Poe in that front, with Bynum taking 15, 20 minutes into that finals and Gasol isn't getting beat up the whole time. Maybe we end up winning that title. I think not. I think a healthy Bynum in that finals. I think the Lakers three-peat. They win that first one and they three-peat. With LeBron, this is an interesting question. So let's say the trade doesn't happen. Does Kobe stay after 2008? That is the real question. Yeah. What do you do? Where do you trade him at that point? Where do you trade him the summer of 2008? Does LeBron come to LA in 2010 if Kobe sticks it out? Who knows? It's gonna. That one is a very tough one. That one's a very tough one. It's probably why I didn't think about it. It's a little easier to say what if, for if Kobe stays in New Jersey, because there's a whole, you can create your own world with that. But with Gasol not coming to LA in February, I still remember the date, February 1 of 2008. What happens after? What happens? Does Mitch get fired at the end of the year? Does Rob Pelinka come after that? Who knows? That can go so many ways. We could talk about that for a week. So, but the easiest answer to that is if they don't trade for Pau Gasol that year, it's likely they don't get anybody else that could take them to the finals. Maybe Kobe's not a Laker after the summer of 2008. And then at that point, Kobe doesn't win the 2 titles in LA. Maybe he wins it somewhere else. Yeah. Who knows? That is a scary thought. And Mitch Kupchak has a spot because of that trade. And had David Stern not vetoed that Chris Paul trade, I think Mitch would still be the GM right now, because he probably would have had another couple titles, and the Lakers wouldn't have hit a decade-long drought that put us in this position. So, I mean, it's such a domino effect. It's crazy how one little thing can change things. Look at Ori's shot, in 2002. What happens to that team? Sports, life, it's a very interesting thing, especially sports. One pitch, one shot changes, one interception when you should have freaking ran can change an entire, I don't even know if the word legacy is enough, an entire life. You changed the entire life. Marshawn Lynch, 2 yards away, he was destroying the Patriots in the second half in that Super Bowl. Just give him the ball. Had they done that, he scores. Belichick and Brady will have lost the last 3 Super Bowls they were in. Does Brady stay in New England after that? Does he get traded during this that offseason? Does Belichick, does he still coach? I mean, it's crazy. And then you go into all these other scenarios, especially in basketball, because there's usually a little more movement in basketball. Man, there's a lot of material in this business, man. We could sit here and we could dedicate a show to one scenario and just talk about it and see which tangent. We could put a whiteboard on and just cluster it, see what's going on, and go, wow, what if they did this? What if he turned into this? What if he didn't mess up his leg? What if he did this? I mean, that's the fun part about this.
So if you've got one what if, what would that be?
What if Charles Barkley had been traded to the Lakers in 91?
I think that would have been the difference. I still think there was still enough left in the tank. I know that I understand that the series was 4-1, but I think that could have been the difference. I think
so that is a very, I had forgotten about that one. There was a lot of talk around that time, even as a 12, 13-year-old. I remember hearing stuff, even though there wasn't Twitter or, we were relying on SportsCenter at the time, which was, by the way, SportsCenter in the 90s was amazing. We can have a show on that too. And my schedule during my adolescence was football practice, SportsCenter, sleep, school, football practice, Sports Center. That was my routine for my sophomore year in high school. It was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful show during the 90s. But in 91, there was talk of Hakeem coming too. The Charles Barkley deal, the reason why that's more of a what if is word was the deal was done. And I don't know what happened. I don't know why they said no. I don't know why it went the other way. There's not a lot of information on it. I think we'd have to look into it. But I'm thinking to myself, if Charles Barkley is on that 91 team, do they beat the Bulls in the finals? I think it goes 7. The problem with that finals, too, is Byron Scott and Worthy were injured in that series. And the Lakers were pretty darn competitive the first 3 games. Game 2, they got, I guess, it was expected the Bulls were going to win game 2 after they lost game 1 on the Sam Perkins 3. But game 2, Jordan hit a shot to tie the game, win an OT and won. If you have Charles Barkley in that game, with Vlade playing as well as he was, you win game 3, then the Bulls start to worry about whether they're going to be able to get back to Chicago. Oof, that's an interesting one. And I think Magic maybe doesn't retire after the whole HIV thing. I mean, he retires, but maybe he comes back knowing he has a shot at continuing, the winning. I think even though Karl Malone and some people were like, I don't know if I want to play against someone who's got that at the time, that they didn't know that it wouldn't have affected anybody. But I think he would have been like, no, I gotta break through here. Okay, we gotta educate everybody, understand that you're not gonna get sick, and we have a championship team here. We can continue to play against the Bulls and Jordan. I have an interesting what if that's really weird.
Okay.
What if you took Kobe and put him in replacement of John Starks on that Knicks team in the 90s?
Oh my gosh. He would have had a share of ejections because he would have gotten angry at quite a few people. There would have been some fisticuffs, but yeah, that definitely would have put things in perspective and obviously given the Knicks a better chance to win.
So you would have had the 90s version of the Celtics and Lakers with the Bulls and Knicks, and Jordan likely has maybe 4 rings at that point. That one I had to talk with my buddy because I was thinking about it. I was in Madison Square Garden in Kobe's last game there. This was before he announced his retirement. It's likely I wouldn't have been able to get in there if he had said it before. I just happened to be at a film festival at the time in New York. Went and saw him play against the Brooklyn Nets. Brooklyn Arena is very beautiful, by the way. And then the following day, they were doing a back-to-back with the Knicks, and I was able to scalp some tickets. I think it was maybe 5 minutes into the game, and I was able to watch Kobe play his last game in Madison Square Garden. Madison Square Garden, I mean, they respect great basketball. If Kobe is in New York in the 90s playing against the Bulls and Jordan, it would have been a Magic Bird thing. It would have been a Wilt, Bill Russell thing, but I think even better. And Jordan would have had a couple less titles in that run as well. And who knows how else things would have developed during that decade as well. So I love this. I love thinking about this kind of stuff. It's fun. It's original. There's so many ideas that could come out. You have so many thoughts that you could, that you can originate. And it just becomes good talk. It becomes entertaining talk, at least for me, instead of talking about the same old stuff. Well, what happened here with, this guy? He choked. He did this and he did that. And I'm like, man, they have bad games sometimes. I mean, the Dodgers got smoked today, right? You could tell 3-4 innings in, you could tell the Rockies were locked in. If you watch enough sports like I do, you know when someone has it and when someone doesn't. Sometimes it's not your fault. Yeah, we have Walker Buehler out there, but They're literally hitting everything. It doesn't matter who the heck is pitching. And in basketball, football doesn't matter. It's the same thing. So let's try to make this what it's supposed to be, fun. Let's talk sports. Let's talk your knowledge. The what ifs is also a really good test on how much knowledge do you have? Do you have good memory of what you've watched? Do you really watch the games? Do you pay attention to the plays? Because I have had discussions with fans of teams. I remember this one in particular, and I actually felt bad when I was doing this, but once I'm on a roll, it just goes. He was a Chicago Bull fan. It was at the Cheesecake Factory. And very nice guy. Wasn't, a jerk or anything. We don't run into that very often. But he was clueless on everything. He's saying, Jordan has 7 scoring titles. And I'm sitting there going, he has 10. The Bulls have 5 championships. I'm like, they have 6. Who was their coach before Phil Jackson? Doug Collins. And there was no knowledge behind his fandom. I'm like, you got to come with something here, and that's something that happens on occasion with the fan of a team. A lot of times, I'll run into Dallas Cowboy fans, and I know more about the Dallas Cowboy fan history than they do. I know who their MVPs were during their Super Bowl runs. I know every MVP and every winner of the Super Bowl, anyways. So again, it's one of those things where it becomes good discussion. And I wouldn't say I'm a Swami, but for some reason I retain that information like Rain Man. So it's easy for me to talk more about the what ifs from the past because I knew those eras very well. Last 30 years of basketball, I know like I know my cell phone, like I know my family. It's just one of those things where it just sticks in here. It just sticks and it doesn't go away. So it makes for good discussion.
That it does, my friend, that it does. But I'll tell you what, before we head on out, it is, again, Joe Soro from lakersball.com. Be part of the great conversations that they have on every one of their awesome threads at lakersball.com. One of the threads that I wanted to go ahead into was something that we touched upon already with yours and my thoughts already on the top 10 all-time Lakers, but I asked the lakersball.com crew to go ahead and share their thoughts on their top 10 all-time Lakers. And sometimes, when you ask for something, you get it. And sometimes you don't always get what you expect. And with your lakersball.com crew, my friend there, I definitely got some things I expected and some things that, well, I didn't. But I wanted to go ahead and mention them on the air. And first off, I want to thank them for taking the time to putting down any list of 10. But I know you've already had a chance to check all these out, but I wanted to go ahead and share this with you again, Joe. Karacha, his set is Kobe, Shaq, Magic, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, LeBron, West, Wilt, Elgin, Mikan, and for the last spot, he was thinking Goodrich, Worthy, or if he wanted to vote for a coach instead, Phil Jackson. That's a great list right there for you. It looks like he was taking his time to go ahead and try and figure out exactly what he wanted to do there. So he was taking it seriously. Time, who's an administrator there, his top 10 is Kobe, Magic, Kareem, Jerry West, Mike and Shaq, Elgin, LeBron, Wilt, and Worthy or Powell or AD. I mean, you can't go wrong with a list like that. And then he goes into even greater detail into top 10 role players, which I really liked. I know something that you touched on and also the Lakerholics touched on as far as role players are concerned. So you got to give them some love. Big Shot Rob, Michael Cooper, Fish, Lamar Odom, Michael Thompson, Jamal Wilkes, Bob McAdoo, AC Green, Kurt Rambis, and of course, Metta World Peace. Because what is any top 10 role players for the Lakers without Metta World Peace? And then coming up to Chick the Goat. He didn't take it quite so seriously. His top 10 was Smush Parker, Kwame Brown, Mark Madsen, Adam Morrison, Antonio Harvey, who was one of my favorites when he was on the team, Travis Knight, DJ Benga, Sam Bowie, the older, already had a few injuries, Sam Bowie, Brian Cook, and of course, the ultimate in Lakers bench warmers, Chuck Nevitt, where I don't know if you remember the old days during the 80s where it got to the point where those teams that won the world championships, they were heading games by 30 and 40. And you can even hear on the transistor radio that I had, or whether I was there for the games at the Forum, whatnot, where you would hear Nevitt, Nevitt, the entire Forum crowd chanting for Nevitt. And he would come in the game when they're up by 30 or 40, and you could just see that 7'5" guy just doing anything. The crowd was cheering for him all the way. So I guess Chick the Goat had it there on his all-time favorite Lakers per se. But still, it's just another interesting list there. I mean, just some great lists that are out there. I know John 316 is a moderator there. His list was Kobe, Kareem, Magic, West, Baylor, Shaq, Braun, Gasol, Worthy, and Wilt. You can't go wrong with that. So definitely some great lists right there for you. Just again, Chick's list was just funny. But IE Lakers also want to put his in. Mike and Elgin, Jerry, Wilt, Kareem, Magic, Big Game James, Shaq, Kobe, and LeBron. And to complete the bench, Gail Goodrich, Michael Cooper, Big Shot Bob, Powell, and AD. Again, that's a great list as well. And then, here's another one for you, man. For the all-time obscure Lakers. Okay, this one's going to be funny. 432J as a Lakers starter right there on the site, lakersball.com. LaRon Profit, Troy Murphy, Mike Muscala, Chris Mim, Sun Yui, Kendall Marshall, Chris Duhon, Darius Morris, Chris Kaman. Remember, in that game, they were shorthanded. He was lying on the bench because he was only the bench in that game long time ago. In fact, there's still memes about that. And Ryan Kelly. So that's a interesting list like there. I think he had to go ahead and put a lot of time into that. But, yes, some great lists right there. GC Clacker, his list was Johnson, Bryant, Abdul-Jabbar, Worthy, Baylor, West, O'Neal, Chamberlain, Mikan, and Wilkes, with honorable mentions of Cooper, Goodrich, Pau Gasol, Odom, and Ori, and too early to include James and Davis. I included them on my list. I'm just saying because, they've already won a title. But, yes, some great lists right there. What are your thoughts, my friend, before we head on out?
The top 10 is too easy for Laker fans. You could say 10 easy, and this really
the hard part is fitting them in the 10.
Yeah, but again,
you're always going to leave someone that's great.
Yeah, you're going to leave. You're less likely to be wrong with the top 10. The real challenge is the top 5. The top 5. I got to a point where I just said it might be just easier to pick the top 5 as only Lakers. Then it gives it a little bit more. And again, it leaves a lot of important guys out, but it doesn't matter. You got George Mikan, who was the number 1 player of his era. And then you got James Worthy. Then you got Kobe Bryant. Then you got Magic Johnson. And I mean, I know Kareem is better than Mikan. Shaq and Kareem are almost, to me, even. So how do you do it? I don't know. I'm just trying to figure another way to make it make sense. I don't know how else to do it. Fisher had games that allowed us to win titles. Ori, same thing. Michael Cooper, Defensive Player of the Year in 1987, guarding Larry Bird. Michael Cooper is a lifetime Laker, never played with anybody else. And how do you not put him in the top 5, being an all-time Laker? Jamal Wilkes, Bob McAdoo. I mean, there's so many guys. How do you do it? Gail Goodrich. I don't even think half the Laker fans nowadays even know who that is. They wouldn't know who it is if his number 25 wasn't up in the rafters. Again, it's crazy. And I think he only played 5 years with the Lakers. Most of his career was with the Utah Jazz. A lot of the cred there with Goodrich was he's also from a Bruin. So it's impossible. It really is. But going to go back to what I was saying. For me, it's got a top five. It's Mikan, Worthy, West, Kobe, Magic. All five were only Lakers. That makes sense to me. And then after that, Shaq, Kareem, soon to be LeBron, soon to be AD, and then you're going to leave, God knows how many people out. It's just, it's an impossible list. It's an impossible list. There's 100 ways you can make it. But to separate it from what everyone else is doing, I think my list would stay with the first five being only Lakers, because they have that many great players to where you could actually do that. And it would at least make sense. It would be respectable, because you want to still honor the guys in the 50s, 60s, 70s. I think a lot of times, the complaint is that there was only 8 and 9 teams at the time, but they don't have control over that. I think you should, those guys helped build, Bill Russell and Sam Jones and Havlicek and Wilt and Bob Cousy. Those guys helped build the league. You got to include them in the ascension of what the NBA eventually turned into. Yeah. So again, I have to do that. I have to do that maybe to be different, but it also makes sense. So my top five is Mikan, West, Worthy, Kobe, Magic. All five are only Lakers. Boom. Then Magic, Kareem. Again, LeBron will end up being that guy one day, and AD will end up being that guy one day, and then you can pick whoever you want at number 10. I mean, it's Michael Cooper, whoever, it doesn't really matter. And then you're going to leave about another 10 off the list. Hall of Famers, too.
Well, it'll be interesting to see, if anybody else wants to go ahead and provide us with their top 10 all-time Lakers lists. I know I've got some individuals from the Lakerholics, and I will mention that on the Lakerholics show coming up next week, but I will go ahead and say, if you got a top 10 list of your own, give us a shout out at Lakers Fast Break on Twitter, LakersFastBreak@yahoo.com, Joe Soro 5 on Twitter, so you can go ahead and give him a shout out on that as well. And of course, before we end on out, my friend, what's going on at LakersBall.com?
Right now, it's kind of the dead time. I'm noticing when I go on, it's not as many comments. So the calm before the storm, and then as soon as training camp starts, and of course, as soon as the season starts, what I mean by season starts, the preseason, now we're going to get into the game time thread, which is, again, my favorite part of the site. We get a banter nonstop for 2.5 hours. And basically it's a revolving thing of this, even in a preseason game, you'll read it where, this guy is gonna stink and this guy is gonna this and this is this. I'm like, and then even in the regular season after 10 games, you start, Laker fans are almost all the same. They get paranoid if they lose, and one possession, they're commenting about how this guy stinks. My favorite part of the season is going to be Rondo. Rondo being regular season Rondo at least 10, 15 times during the year, and having all of my constituents bury him and want him to be shipped off to another galaxy. That is some of the pure comedy of being involved with the Laker fan and seeing how, you want to talk about what have you done for me lately? There's a whole new word when it comes to Laker fans. It's what have you done literally a second ago for me?
With Lakers fans, again, it's going to be something that there always are who they say they are, and they're always out there, whether it's on Twitter, Lakerholics, whether it's on Facebook, Lakerholics, you can follow us there, Lakers Fast Break, very vocal there as well. We truly appreciate that. But also, of course, at LakersBall.com. A great place to go for some great conversations, great threads, great topics that they always talk about. So please go ahead and check out Fox 1947 and the rest of the crew today at LakersBall.com. Any last thoughts, my friend, before we head on out?
I'm ready for the season to start right now, but in the meantime, we'll have some more dialogue in the next few weeks. Hopefully we'll get some more information on the Vegas Kumbaya if you will.
I wonder if the Masked Singer, the latest Masked Singer, Mr. Dwight Howard's going to be there. I mean, I don't know if that was taped, how far in advance that was taped, but yes, the Masked Singer was unveiled after singing Tutti Frutti was Dwight Howard. Your thoughts before we head on out?
I don't watch the show, but being a Laker fan, if there's a Laker on there, you'd find out what's going on. I am not surprised in the least that he would do a show like that. And of course, him singing Little Richard's Tutti Frutti was fitting of Dwight Howard's comedic.
Well, he did it for mom, he said. So he did it for mom, all the right reasons.
Good for him. Good for him. Again, he's got the comedic thing in his blood. He loves enjoying his life. One of the few things that I did admire about Dwight Howard, even in his first stint, he would say things like, I'm blessed to be here. And that's a good way to look at things. And when you're healthy and you've got good fortune, you're taken care of in your life financially and spiritually and all that stuff. Those are some of the things that I did admire about him, appreciating that, because I think we lose focus on that a lot. But as he's matured since then, he's also gotten he knows when to turn on the business side. And his ego, his whatever, is not an issue. He's locked into what he knows he can do. Laker fans were upset that he was not signed last year. And it looked like at the speed of when they re-signed him again this summer, it looked like Rob Pelinka thought the same thing. So Laker fans are pretty knowledgeable. Even though we're a little crazy, we know our basketball. And I think we did lose a little bit of that energy. And again, that locker room thing, man, that is it's important. It's very important. And I think him not being in that locker room and Rondo not being that guy that kind of he's got that attitude of like, yeah, we're supposed to do this, after the AD shot. The only thing I really look at in that shot is Rondo. Rondo makes the perfect pass. AD shoots it, makes it, and Rondo's just like I knew it was going to happen. That is a great thing to have to balance all the craziness in an NBA season. And when you get into the playoffs, when the pressure is really tight, having somebody that can make you laugh or someone who's just like, what? It's what we're supposed to do. It balances everything out. It calms you down. We were missing that in 2021. We were worried about this guy. Is he going to sign after turning down $84 million? We're worried about Marc Gasol, whom, I'm sorry, Mark, but is the word washed up a little harsh? Yeah, but he was. Why is he complaining? He did, and it put a rift in things, and it made things worse, even though it wasn't the reason why we went down. But it didn't help. It didn't help that you had a guy that wasn't really dedicated to the team, who was thinking about himself. And then you had another guy who was upset, which, I get it. He wanted to play, but it didn't help the situation. Now we fast forward. We bring back two huge pillars of the 2020 title team, and then we add some youth and some veteran leadership on top of that, who want to win, who have something to prove in Carmelo and guys like Russell Westbrook. And let's give it a shot. And again, I said this before, if we don't win a title this year, it'll be sad, but man, are the Lakers trying. Man, did they pull every rabbit out of their hat to get this thing the way it is. We have to appreciate that, and we have to give Jeannie, Rob, and LeBron and AD and that whole crew at least some kind of like, guys, good job trying to make this work. If it works, fantastic. If it doesn't, heck, man, you really, really went out of you guys' way to get this thing done. LeBron getting this is the part I do love about LeBron. He does this very well, which is, guys, let's go to Vegas and let's build some stuff, And his game also reflects that.
Mhm.
Worried about Westbrook and LeBron. I'm like, there's one player other than Magic Johnson, that I would never worry about. It doesn't matter if he's the shooting guard, center, whatever. Those guys know how to work with any talent at any position because they've already proved they can. You know, Magic won 2 titles with Norm Nixon, who was at point guard. But finally, Norm's like, dude, I want to handle the ball. They're like, sorry, bro, we got Magic. I'm going to send you the Clippers. We're going to get a shooting guard. Okay? Magic, LeBron, that's one thing that you cannot deny. They can work with anyone. Doesn't matter what position, what it is, whatever it is, they've already proved that they can make it work. So, again, let's get pumped. I got my Laker gear on. I'm already ready to go. I'm ready for number 18. Oh man, what a celebration that's going to be. We're going to have our show somewhere else if we do end up getting number 18, Gerald. So we got to prepare.
Let's have it in Boston.
Okay, I'll tell you what. If we get lucky, and they happen to play Boston, I promise you, I will stay in Boston for the 2 weeks, and we'll do a show every day if we have to. Whatever it costs, I don't care. I think that would be a blast. I think that would be so much fun. But I do, again, you are in Vegas. I mean, it's only a 4.5-hour drive. We can get the background of the beautiful lights and glitz and glamour and all that. That's the part of Vegas I do love. I love the sporting events. I love the lights in Vegas. Some of the shows. Those are the things I'm not really much of a gambler. I'm not really into too much of the adult stuff that's around there. That's probably the one reason why I don't go there as much, especially with me being a family man. And then in general, even when I'm by myself, it's just not my cup of tea. But man, I love the shows, love the lights, love the sports. Anytime I've gone there for any event, boxing or MMA, it's been an absolute blast. And I do need to come see a Golden Knights game as well as seeing a Raiders game. And soon enough, I think eventually there's going to be an NBA team there and there's going to be a baseball team there because I think Vegas is going to soon be the esports capital of the world. And they've been really trying to be the new Hollywood of the world. And these sports teams coming in there now, I think they have a shot at making it work.
We'll see what's going to happen. But yes, Las Vegas is growing by leaps and bounds in regards to getting more sports teams. Baseball has also been talked about. You're right, talking about building a new stadium. And yeah, I mean, that would be great for the city and also great for the West Coast to get more teams involved. Seattle obviously comes first for the NBA. But you know what, my friend? It's been great having a conversation with you. I look forward to our turn next week, talking more great stuff. We'll be already in camp, so we'll start to see and hear some news on camp. Hopefully no injuries. That's all I'm worried about. So we'll see what happens, my friend. But any last thoughts on the way out?
Well, again, next week we can start talking about what's going on. I'm looking for an 80, finally a full season here for us to enjoy what an NBA season is supposed to be. We're going to be able to get everything back on time with the playoffs. I think that's going to be important as well. And the pandemic, from again what I've read, is it's starting to cluster in certain spots, which means it's the first sign that there might be the removal of the term and the pandemic probably by 2022. So I think by the end of this year, we're going to be out of the craziness of what we've been dealing with for the last year and a half plus, and we can start focusing on, again, having better shows and having more information and more material for our soon-to-be large audience. I want us to be one of the pillars of the Laker information media, so that, and of course, entertaining. This is what this is supposed to be. We're supposed to entertain, and there's no better team to talk about when it comes to entertainment than the LA Lakers. We're Showtime. May not be the 80s Showtime, the golden era, but we're still Showtime. We got LeBron James, we got Anthony Davis, we got Russell Westbrook. Those guys are all Hollywood, all of them. And we're going to be the voice and the expression of that, the extended expression of who those guys are. A lot of people dislike LeBron. A lot of people dislike the LA Lakers. So that always brings more eyes to that. You know, I'm a Dodger Laker fan. I've met more people that dislike my team than not. And people usually don't like the teams that always win. And we're all winners. This is something you have to deal with.
Well, we'll see indeed if there's going to be another winning season for the Lakers. And it all starts officially next week as training camp starts for the team. Catch our updates all the time that's going on here at Lakers Fast Break. Follow us, Lakers Fast Break, on Facebook, where we post everything that's going on there. At Lakers Fast Break on Twitter. Just want to go ahead and make sure everybody checks out the great shows of the Hoopheads Podcast Network. Of course, I do for all those pop culture fans out there. We've been talking a lot about pop culture on today's show. Always catch my radio shows syndicated worldwide at the Pop Culture Cosmos, wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, our friends out there at lakersball.com. Be part of the great conversation there today at lakersball.com. Well, Joe, great to have you here. Looking forward to our conversation next week and where we can go from there. Looking forward to a great season and, of course, training camp around the corner right here at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast.